How good's this?
Folks at home and listening abroad, wherever you are, we are joined in the How Good's This studio by none other than the Magic Fingers himself, Mr. Eric Krasno. Folks, wow. Eric, how you doing, baby?
I'm great, man. I'm great, you know.
I don't know if I've ever called you Eric.
Yeah. Not only my mom.
I didn't even know that was your name.
And my and my wife when she's mad at me. That's when Eric comes out.
She'll drop an Eric. What's your middle name, Eric?
Peter.
Eric Peter Krasno.
If I do something
EPK.
really messed up, it's Eric Peter Krasno. That's when I'm really fucking up.
Damn.
So you have a brother. How many siblings do you have, Kras?
Well, I have a stepbrother. Through marriage, who's younger than me, Jono. But my brother Jeff is, we're the two blood brothers.
Again, growing up, were you both considered Kras? Like, was that your nickname? Was Kras?
I was Little Kras.
Little Kras. Okay, word.
Yeah.
When did you graduate to Big Kras?
When he and I were in different schools. I ended up going away to school. In high school to like a weird boarding school. I mean, it was awesome actually, like way up in the woods in Vermont. And that's when I became Kras, because when we were in the same school system in our hometown, I was Little Kras. Yeah, and then when you just started shredding the gnar on the old git fiddle, they were like, "Ain't nothing little about this guy." When did you outgrow your brother? Because you're taller than he is. I am taller than my brother. I guess that must have been like mid high school days. But he's like almost 6 years older than me, so it took a while for me, he used to like kick my ass when I was a kid.
Oh yeah,
he was also a musician, or he is a great musician. So like, that was my thing when I was a kid. Him and his friends would be jamming in my basement, and that was like what I just wanted to hang. I was like, and so I'd pick up the instrument, and I would suck, and they'd be like, "Go practice that thing," and I'd go try to practice and come back, and they'd tell me I sucked again. And
I learned Stairway, bro. Check it out.
How old were you when you actually picked it up?
I had a bass first when I was like 13, I think. And then 14 is when I got into guitar. Before that, I was like messing around. Like, I think I took a piano lesson or two. When I was a really young kid, my mom thought I was like, gifted or musically talented for some reason. And, got me Suzuki violin lessons. I don't know if you know that. It's like where you learn it like with your parent.
Oh wow!
And I was like 3 years old, but I forget the song, but it was like hot cross buns, and I started. They would have you sing, "I can play my violin, I can play my violin," and I was going, "I can break my violin," and I wanted to break it, and my mom was like, "Okay, let's not break that."
That's expensive.
It took me a minute though. It wasn't until like. I actually was Led Zeppelin. It's funny that you mentioned Stairway. It was like Led Zeppelin was the shit where I was like, oh man, I want to learn that. I want to like learn these songs. Because up until then, you like take music lessons and it's always like classical and hymns and all these different things that I didn't really connect with. So it was like rock and roll, like Zeppelin, Hendrix. There was that stuff.
Who introduced you to that? Was it your older brother?
Yeah, my brother was into that stuff. Although he was really into Van Halen, and then like I kind of got into Zeppelin through a buddy of mine, who was like just into it and got me into it. I had another friend who was into Hendrix, and I had like a Hendrix shrine in my room. I was like so into it. And then I got into hip hop kind of early too. I was into like Run DMC and the Beastie Boys. So I was in a talent show when what was it, like second or third grade, and I like rapped the entire Beastie Boys.
Sweet.
Paul Revere. I was into like breakdancing and all that. I was just into all of it.
How many phone numbers do we need to contact to get that footage?
That's a good question, man. I would love to see that. I also had. Do you guys remember? I think I'm older than you guys, but there was a guy named Brian Bosworth, the Boz, who was like,
hell yeah, bro! He played for the
remember
Seahawks.
How he had this hair like with like the buzzed out stuff. I did weird stuff with my hair. I had like weird buzzed out lines and probably had a rat tail and everything bad about the 90s.
Let's bring them back, dude. Let's bring back the rat tails. I'm trying to do that.
You know,
dude.
I would maybe go Bosworth lines, but I used to rock the jams and I skateboarded. I was like, I didn't know what I was. I was like into skateboarding, hip hop. Wore tie-dyes, but it's Zeppelin. I didn't know.
Bro, you were cultural camouflage. You were just trying to get in where you fit in, you know?
Yeah, I was trying to figure it out. But yeah, my brother had a band, though, and they used to practice in the basement, and that's what got me into wanting to play.
What, is there a member of your family that's musical? Like where, because part of me doesn't understand people who are super good at music that don't come from some sort of musical background. They're like, oh, my mom is like works at the Heiko, and my dad, he's a radio DJ. Like there's just even rhythm to me feels so genetic. Do you have that in your family?
Yeah, my dad's dad was a professional musician.
Oh,
Played like gypsy music, played violin, played piano, and he played like gypsy jazz.
Wow, where would I go to? Who
you can actually find he's a little bit hard to find, but he made a few records. It was Lou Krasno and the Gypsy Gems.
Dude,
oh, wait,
that is so cool, man.
But it was kind of cool because he would also like take popular songs and make them gypsy style. Like he did Beatles songs and like other pop songs. And he had his little crew of guys in the Bay Area, and he had an interesting life. He was a surgeon and a doctor for most of his life, quit in his 50s.
Shut the fuck
to be
up.
A musician. Yeah.
No
I mean,
way.
he always played music, but he like later in life was like, I just want to do this, you know. And he wasn't like hugely famous from that, but like in his little scene, he was known.
So when would he have been a surgeon? What year would that have been?
Oh man, that's like a good question.
30s or 40s?
Like 40s and 50s. Yeah.
Wow,
and in the 60s, he was making records and doing his thing. Yeah.
Can you imagine how?
I think that's right.
Can you imagine how intense surgery would have been in the 40s?
Yeah.
Like I guess that is post morphine and the ability to like subdue pain, but. Oh man, just like I guess just lop it off, dude. And he's like,
just lop it on off. Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't done a ton of research on like what his profession was like. He was pretty old. By the time I was playing music, he actually had Parkinson's, and so like I didn't get to play with him. He also lived in California, and I grew up on the East Coast. But it's crazy because a lot of his friends that he played with later on I played with or played around, and they would all like tell me that I had the similar like inflections and I never played with him and I didn't get to listen to him a ton because I actually finally found his records on eBay in the last like decade. I started searching to find his records because you couldn't find it online or whatever. And I can hear that, but it's funny because it's not like I actually learned from him or anything.
Wild.
Yeah,
That's
it's a weird thing.
weird.
There was a couple guys that like his friends that he played with that saw me play and they were like crying. This one guy. And my dad tells me that too, is that because my dad is a great player. He never was a professional player and didn't even read music really or anything. He just plays totally by ear, but plays piano and like mandolin and can play by ear though. Like he'll play along with like records and he can figure stuff out, but has no idea like musically what's going on really,
That's how I feel when I'm in the same room with musicians like you, Kraz. As like, that guy knows what's happening right now, and I'm just like, I'm just standing here and just like trying not to fuck it up. I'm just like,
but you have so much natural talent and ability that it's almost better. It's like whenever I've played chord changes for you, you sing exactly with even better than I would think of. You know what I mean? You have such great instincts. And I was really amazed working with you like in the studio and stuff because you two were like, I don't really know what's going on, but you can hear it all.
Yeah, I'm just flying blind, man. A blind squirrel finds a nut every so often, Kraz.
You're finding a lot of nuts,
Crazy, baby. So you just recently moved to LA. You did most of your musical development career on the East Coast in New York City, and now you've been in LA, California for the last year, right?
2.5 years.
It was 2 years now, actually. Just over 2 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm curious to know or to hear from you your perspective on both places. Is there one? I mean, I'm sure you love both of the spots, but like, what is it like coming into LA from a East Coaster's perspective?
Well, I'm glad that I spent my earlier years in New York, because there's a certain like fire in New York, even though it's the coldest place ever. But like, there's just a certain grind, part of it is the weather. Part of it is the atmosphere. It's just that the living is so much harder there. That's the thing. But that's the thing is like, you want to be working all the time because there's nothing else it's like in California, it's like so beautiful all the time, and it's a way better place to live. I'll give you the truth. But it's a little bit more, every day you wake up and it's beautiful outside. You want to go for a hike. You want to go to the beach. You want to go do this. You want to go do that. So it's like harder to get work done. You know what I mean?
A lot more distraction.
And then also in New York City, you can do like 4 or 5 sessions in a day because the train moves. Like I can get places in 15 minutes, 20 minutes. In LA, I feel like, you're in your little niche, partly because to get across town and back is like a day. Like people in LA always say, I can do one thing a day. I can go the west side and then I got to wait for traffic to die down. Then I can come back or vice. So you kind of find your people in your local little scene, and that's it. I feel like when I was in New York, I could as a 20 in my 20s and 30s, like going out every night, I could go to the Blue Note and then in the same night go to like the Beacon Theater and see some like the Allman Brothers, and I could see like Sonny Rollins that night, and then I could like go to the studio and like Kweli's in the studio until 5 a.m. and I'm in there with him. So I had great, especially because I came from this eclectic upbringing of like listening to so many different types of music. It was so cool for me to be able to be around so much of that, and Soulive got to be part of the Blue Note Records world, and there was such a cool thing going on there. But I was also like into hip hop and got to be around the whole like Raucous Records era. I don't know if you guys are aware of that, but that was like a huge thing in New York City in the late 90s. And got to be like around the Electric Lady, like studio world that was going on. So like, I feel like the timing for me to be in New York was so cool and crucial for me to like learn from all these amazing people, And I think my world in LA is much more like I have my family here. I have my studio in the backyard where I can spend most of my time in my flip flops, and like people, it's around, there's enough music going on here and musicians here that it's great for collaboration. But I wouldn't say I don't go out really much here, and then half of my time here has been during COVID. Which like, I hike and take walks every day and get on my bike. And so I'm really glad that I was here during that too.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Would have been a different experience if you're in New York City. Is there a personality, like a typical personality trait in between both spots? Is there like do you think that the warmer weather just makes people a little bit more, I don't want to say flaky, but like it's harder to pin folks down?
No, you can say flaky. You can say. So here's the funny thing about that is you always hear about like, oh, LA is flaky. And, you'd think it's like, oh, people from LA are flaky. No, it's like when you live here, you're flaky because you walk outside getting ready to go to some shit, and then you look up and you're like, oh man, it's really those trees, man. Oh, we can just chill out over here. You know what I mean? And the weed's amazing. So like half the people are like smoking this amazing weed, walking out of their house, and then going, let's see, should I get in my car and sit in traffic for 2 hours, or just like look at this tree?
Yeah.
I like
or like make music in my house. Right. So like, I guess what happened was I got here and people were really flaky, and then I started realizing like I don't blame them. You know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, they make these plans to do all this shit. For me, I just make less plans. You know what I mean? I'm just like, okay, I'm going to do this day. I'm going to do this that day. But I think what's happened in recent times, now that people can build their own studios, like I moved into this, like there's so many houses here with studios. This house had a studio built in the backyard.
No way.
Before I moved in, because the film industry is here, the music industry, and so many people are making that. I feel like that's really helped the LA scene because now like there's so many cool little studios, like every block. I meet like musicians that like are building these cool little studios and making music and putting out music and like there's a lot of cool scenes like kind of coming up in LA now.
Do you think that you could have lived there before? Because I think being a person who's established now in your career and going out to LA consciously because of the career that you've created over the decades of time that you've put your time in, do you think you could have lived there like say 10, 15 years ago and tried to like come up in the same way?
Well, it's funny you asked, Julian. Well, because I actually did live here in 2005 or 6. So Adam Deitch and I were, you know, hustling as producers back then, as well as being in our bands. And we didn't actually sign with Interscope, but we were working with Interscope as our managers. We placed a couple tracks. We did a thing for Snoop Dogg, and we got on the Curtis 50 Cent album. And so when we were like placing some of these tracks, we moved out here to kind of like get into the scene and was working with some great people, you know. But it was I realized for me that, you know, one, I was like kind of starting over in that world. And meanwhile, like Soulive and Lettuce was like doing pretty well. And, you know, I kind of got to a point where I had to choose between like being in my bands, you know, where I was part of the artistry, or like really deciding to become like an LA like producer. And, you know, I kind of realized during that time that, not that I was like disposable, but it was like they were, you know, there was a lot of people doing that and it wasn't really about me. You know what I mean? It was about getting this thing done. You know, it's like, okay, here's the business we're trying to create. Here's what we need to create that. And I remember I did a lot of waiting around, like you said, like and I'm not saying those people were flaky to me on purpose, but you know, they didn't, it was like, there was a lot of sessions. There was a specific incident where I was waiting. I was supposed to be working with Dr. Dre and his team. And I was basically like out here, like staying different places, planning to move, but hadn't fully made the move. And when they finally got the session ready, I was like on the way to the airport to go do like my New Year's run with Soulive. And we had like sold out shows. I think we had the 930 Club, like Irving Plaza, a couple other. And, I remember trying to explain to them that I was like, I got shows. And they're like, shows? What are you talking about? I'm like, I'm in a band. We do shows. And they're like, well, get someone else. I'm like, we can't. I'm like in the band. There's 3 of us, you know? And because the scenes were so different at that time. Yeah. And, you know, no Instagram or no anything. So it was like 2 different worlds I was living in, you know, that was like, one was like trying to make it in this like pop, hip hop world, and then one was like Soulive's world, which was somewhere between jazz and jam band. And you know, we didn't, you know, but we had like a good following. And I realized that, you know, one was like, if I went to the studio and did that session, you know, they could probably replace me in 5 minutes, or like if I didn't, you know, whereas the Soulive, they like, those people were there buying tickets to see me, you know, or us, you know what I mean? And whereas I was replaceable in this other scenario. But what I realized during that time was that I wanted to move back here eventually for my lifestyle. But I had more to do. You know what I mean? I had more to do on the East Coast. And then after that, like being a part of like the Brooklyn Bowl kind of thing and building this like community. And then like, then of course, a few years after that, that started to fall apart and a lot of the people I was working with moved. And then it just felt like time by a couple of years ago to move out here. But I'm really glad that I moved back, and Soulive like started doing like these residencies and then I started doing these things at the Blue Note where I got to work with so many great artists, where I got to meet Alan for the first time, and we kind of like shifted gears into this whole other thing as like a house band, but also like creating with new artists. And I'm really like thankful for that time period. But yeah, I think now I'm really glad to be here and to have my studio. And then also like during COVID, it's been like I've been able to collaborate with people via satellite and do the podcast and like work from home, which has been something that I probably would not have really focused on if it hadn't been for this time, in terms of like creating these things to do at home, which has been nice, especially with having a young kid.
Hey, folks. Today, our episode is brought to you in part by our good friends at Ladder Coffee. Head to laddercoffee.com and you can order beans directly from the brewer, as well as some of this beautiful cold brew. Locally owned and operated out of Spokane, Washington. Check it out. Ladder Coffee.
I'm jacked!
Yeah. You've been, ever since I've known you, Kraz, you've been a pavement slapper. Like, you're not a road dog, you're like a road ferret, dude. You travel more than any human I've ever met in my life. And I've kind of always been on that tip, and I've noticed since this pandemic and everything sort of slowed down, like how two things have happened. For the first 6 months, I was like, wow, I don't think I'm ever going to go back to traveling as much as I did. And then now a year, like the 6 months after that, I was like, I kind of want to go travel a little bit,
right?
But I can't. What's your perspective on that? You've constantly been a traveler, and now you're like home. You've got a new kid. You're married. Do you miss the road at all? Do you desire that lifestyle a little bit still, or are you just like so amped to be able to be 15 feet away from a Keurig machine and like your big screen?
Dude, I was talking about this morning because I am a homebody. I love being home. And even like, I do a lot of traveling with production, with recording and being a producer and a writer or whatever. And even that, I have been loving just not only being able to work in my sweatpants and my slippers, but also to have my own gear and listen on my own speakers. And when someone wants me to, when I'm putting guitar on something or creating, I have my guitars and my pedals and my synth, and having all those luxuries of home on so many levels have been great. And I also love cooking and I love doing all that stuff. So I love being home. And I love creating from home. I'm just now starting to get a little bit of cabin fever. I think part of that too is that we can't even go out and like eat at a restaurant. So I think when that opens up, but I think I do miss playing live shows, but I don't know if I'll ever go back to the pace that I was at before. I think that when things go back, I'll probably pick and choose a little more, and not necessarily, when I make a record, I'll go out and do shows and try to support that record. But I don't know if I'll be, pounding the pavement in the same way. Wasn't
it always the goal though to like get to that point where you could be able to pick and choose when you got to go out and do it, or were you always in the interest of I'm forever road dog, like for the rest of my life?
Dude, I always wanted this. I mean, that was kind of why I moved to LA back in 2006 or whatever, was like trying to kind of pave that path. But, it's like you never know how you're going to get there. But I think some of it is like the lockdown, the pandemic has forced me to create these avenues, and I still haven't really figured it out. I would, as far as like, figuring out how to make money and make a, because that was the thing. It's like I always wanted to be producing full time, but you got to tour. It's like I love touring also to a certain degree, but more like the musical part and like being with my friends and playing shows. The travel has never been, something I loved. I like hanging out in cool cities. Don't get me wrong, but like the buses, the planes, the like the health side of it. My body was like definitely getting beat up by being on the road. So I think like, and that'll be interesting to see how, because I feel I've been seeing so many artists start new things. You guys starting this podcast, I started podcasting, and I've been working with this producer Otis McDonald, and we started out just doing a song. Now we like make music like all the time together. We use this thing called Pedal, where we can create through our studios and record together almost in like real time.
Oh wow!
And it's been like awesome. So it's also, I've found new ways to collaborate. So I'm curious to see how all these artists that I've been watching like pivot in all these ways, how things will change when touring comes back, and if like some of this streaming and all this stuff we've been doing is going to sustain, because some people might choose just to do it that way, or at least like a hybrid of the two.
Yeah, I think I hope a hybrid of the two happens, because being away from it, the touring and the travel and the road, it like this far away from it doesn't seem sustainable. Like the amount of touring that I was doing for 10 plus years, now having a year at home with, especially like bringing a child into the picture is like a completely different thing, but just like sustainable on my body, period. It was like, man, like that's like the music is the reason why it's even viable, right? Because you get to play a show, and that's like, oh, this is amazing. Like this is the highest you get. But the actual attrition is in the travel. Like that's the work. I've heard touring musicians say this several times. Like, you don't pay me to play music. I'd do that for free. You pay me to travel.
Right.
Like I'm a paid traveler. I would never go to Omaha ever. Right. Like you're paying me to come there and do the thing that I would just normally be doing. And so I think for, my specific, perspective since this COVID situation is like, oh, there's other ways to like continue to connect with people other than like standing right in front of them, and to flex those muscles and learn those technologies has been like a real fun exploration, especially seeing my friends do it too. Like, God, the interviews that you've had on your podcast, Kraz, are just like so cool that somebody's doing that in the music industry. That's an actual musician. There's not too many people who are doing it that are like actual musicians. There's like radio DJs and radio personalities, but like an actual human being that can play an instrument and knows music is such a cool perspective to come through.
Yeah, and I don't think it would have happened on the same level if there wasn't the time to dedicate, And it's funny because watching you guys do this has been the same thing. It's like been really inspiring for me, and I've always known like how funny you are, or both of you guys are, and like we've had such great laughs together. And anyway, so it's just been like fun to watch. You and I pretty much, we went to Mexico together. I gotta just talk about this trip, because it was one of the greatest trips I don't think I've laughed that much for a solid 5 or 6 days. Alan and I went to Mexico.
Well, Swati was in the mix too, and Swati's hilarious.
Yeah. Yes. That was where I got to know. I knew both of you guys at that point, but we left like bros for life. Yeah. It was just so a lot of tequila, a lot of just messing around, and we actually did write some songs. We went down there to
did do something.
Yeah,
we did write some songs, but oh man, we laughed a ton.
We laughed so hard. And one of those tunes, actually, Swati was sending me one of the tunes that we had written, I mean, what was that, 5 years ago that we went down there?
There was some good stuff in there, actually.
There's a bunch of good stuff. And I think one of the tunes is actually going to see the light of day. Like the last,
yes.
I don't know if you have listened to any of the last takes on, I forget what the name of the original song was.
He sent it to me. I played on like whatever the newer version. I played on the final version. It definitely went through some changes, but it's killing.
It's a killing track. I'm stoked that something from that trip is going to see the light of day beyond like the 3 years that I shaved off my life.
Right. Wow.
Yeah,
that was so much fun though. But yeah, here's the thing, man, is like the parts that I miss about traveling and being on the road are the shows and just the people, man, the hangs,
the camaraderie.
It's just, when you're out there on the road, the great thing about it is that, generally the people we're playing music with are also our good best friends.
Right. Yeah.
So that's why we have the best job. And why, as much as I complain about the travel, the fact that I get to make music with my friends is the greatest job I could ever imagine.
It's bonkers. Yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. And I take it as a privilege that we're experiencing something like this in 2021 versus like 1918, right? We have the capability now.
Right.
My life, the only thing that's changed in my life really is that like I am not living out of a suitcase anymore.
Right.
So I've been able to play music. I've been able to connect with my friends. I've been able to make music and make content, and not that many terrible things have happened or changed in my life since this pandemic. Other than just like it's just been had the space to learn, which has been super cool. What have you What have you taken from this pandemic or learned from this pandemic that you were like, oh, wow, I had no idea that was going to be a lesson I would learn at this stage of my life?
I've packed so many of those into this year because we had a baby, we got married. And, so a lot of, the part of it is, and it's so cliche, but it's like that those moments with your family and building your family and building the home it's everything, man. It's like I used to see musicians like quit music altogether. Of course, that's not me. I have so much fun making music, and that light will never go out. Not to be cheesy, but like you meet a lot of people my age, I'm 44, that have been doing music as long as me, are jaded, and I get that. But I'm never going to be that guy. However, the other things are so important, man. It's like musicians forget that sometimes, and like I have a lot of very close friends that, and I'm not throwing shade to them, but that will never have that. And I'm just so thankful that I've been able to find the woman to raise a child with and to like build a home. That was something I always wanted. So that's been like, it's been reinforcing this year, like how those little things, like we talked about in the beginning, like your kid, like gut laughing for the first time and being around for that has been so crucial. And then just like learning new skills, like a lot of different things that I'd like, I had, there's like this never ending list in my brain that I'm like, oh, I really want to like learn how to like edit video, but like I never really had the reason to, but now that I'm like here and I'm in my studio, it's like I've been learning like some video editing stuff and, trying to get better at keyboards, get better at drums, be able to like really make records in here by myself. All these things that were kind of like before you would get someone else to do it, or be forced to do that. It's been like really cool to have the time to like work on those things. And
I kind of it's not only like the time necessarily, because we always had the time,
right?
It's like what this particular year has allowed me was I constantly felt like, oh, if I don't take this next gig, if I don't keep my wheels spinning, then like somebody else is going to come and take my spot, and then I'm not going to be able to get that spot again. They're going to take my gig. They're going to take my gig. And the blessing of this year has been that like nobody's got the gig anymore. Right. And so we're all like at even playing field, which is allowing you to learn how to edit video and like get back to the drums and play the keyboards and raise a family and not, I don't know if you've ever felt that way, but for me personally, it was always like, oh, I get the freedom now to like learn all these things that I've wanted to know and learn and stretch for many years. It's cool, man, because since I've known you, which I think I met you in 2012, I've always sort of looked at you as like this older brother figure in the music industry, because you've had so much more time in the industry than I have. And you're just like beyond talented. And also too, you're like one of the sweetest humans alive. Like from the moment I met you, Kraz, there was this kinship that I felt with you, where I've met older people in the industry that I get along with, but they never treated me like right away like a homie. Right. And it's cool to hear you talk about your child, because that's the one thing I hold a little bit of a seniority over you with, because my child is a little bit older. And all I can tell you is like the joy you're experiencing right now gets 100 times better. Yeah. It's like my son is 2. Yeah. About to be 2 at the end of this month. And it's like fun. It's the funnest thing ever to like interact with him now. Cause how old's your baby?
6 months.
6 months. So like
about to be 6. Yeah.
So right now it's starting to be a 2-way street, right? Like there's some lanes opening on the other side of the freeway, but like primarily for those first 8 months, it's just a 1-way street where you're just like, hey, I'm gonna help change the poop and then feed and then sleep, and the only thing you're getting back is just like the joy that you've got a child into the world. But then when they start like sending stuff back, right? Like they start laughing and then and then communicating. It's like, bro, it's another planet. It's just
I cannot. I keep saying can't wait till he starts like speaking and stuff. I actually saw a video that your wife posted of him playing drums, and that got me so stoked. Yeah, bro. Because it's like. Because Lewis, I bring him in here, and like he like holds the stick, but like if I'm playing drums, he's just so fascinated. Or like when I take his hand and I put it on a keyboard and it makes this sound, so he gets the connection of it. But man, I can't wait to like jam with my kid. It's gonna be the greatest. Yeah,
we got him.
Ever.
We got him the Questlove Pocket Kit by Ludwig, and it's interesting actually because like what. I wish I would have started on drums. Yeah. I wish I would have started on drums and then gone to keyboards. Yeah. And then I feel like I would have found my way to guitar. Yeah. As a music producer, what do you think obviously any path is any path, but like if there was a theory on which path you should take first, what is that? Is it keyboards? Is it violin?
I wish that I really focused on keyboard or like learned keyboards first, to be honest, just because in the current age of production, like keyboards can sound like when you know your way around a keyboard, you can make any sound, right? Pretty much. And that's only going to get better over time. Right. So like, MIDI information is recorded by a keyboard and then turned into anything. So, but I also think it's a foundation that's great to learn in terms of harmony and stuff. And, like when you're sitting down at a keyboard to like, you can, for arranging, whether it's vocals or strings or whatever. But I agree that drums are important in percussion and rhythm. Like I already have gotten him like little percussion sets and like things that he's not even old enough to really mess with yet. But yeah, I think I think you're probably right. Like percussion, piano. But I think what I think is going to happen is I just got to have the instruments around. I can't force it on him and just see where he ends up. He might just want to like, paint, or who knows what he may want to be a doctor. But I'm going to at least have the instruments available.
Right.
Because I also think back to like when I was a kid, I did have instruments around my house, and like that was so cool. It was so fun to like mess around with them. You know, I didn't have like a studio to record in per se, but yeah, I'm excited for all of that. And like, you know, that's the thing, is that I just don't want him to take it so seriously. I love being around families that make music, and I think that's so cool, whether it's like singing together. And I know you had some of that. But like Adam Deitch was someone that I've known since high school. And I remember going to his house and seeing him like jam with his parents. And it was like the coolest thing to be around. And I had that a little bit, you know, we would just mess around in my house, but like they would make real music at his house. They'd be like recording sessions, and dad on piano, mom on drums, and Deitch playing, you know, percussion, or they'd switch it up. And
that's so cool.
Being around that was so cool. And yeah, I've just always wanted that family band kind of vibe.
Dude, that's cool. You have like this. It's interesting, man, because I haven't known you nearly as long as Alan. I've only gotten to spend a little bit of time with you, but in that time, and just even talking to you now, you have this like spirit around music in your career that's so rooted in like positivity and gratitude. And you talk about not being like jaded as like a guy who's been in the industry for so long. And it is very apparent that you're not that thing. And I wonder, because I know a lot of young aspiring musicians listen to this podcast because they're like, oh, I love Alan Stone and I want to be like that guy someday. And I just wonder, like, how did you navigate being like, how did you steer away from that? I don't know a lot of musicians, but you seem to be one of the most connected, dialed in musicians I certainly know of. You know everybody, you've worked with everybody, you've had this like epic career, and you've maintained this like not only integrity but like positive headspace throughout the whole entire thing, it seems to be. And I wonder, like, did you have some like times where it was just fucking awful for you and you were actually feeling jaded, man. And is that why you can be where you're at now, or how did you navigate all that?
I think I'm fortunate, like, in a lot of ways, but I think it comes back to, well, you know, my family was always like supportive, you know what I mean? My mom's an artist. My dad was in education. They both were educators, but my mom like painted and made art. My dad was so into music. His dad was a musician. So it being around me, but you know, I think the biggest thing for me is that I'm a fan. You know, I'm a music fan. Like when I reached out to Alan to work together because I got like the goosebumps the first time I heard him sing, you know? And the fact is that I find myself in this amazing position to work with people I'm fans of, you know? So like, and that never left. I didn't all of a sudden become not a fan. You know what I mean? So as I got to tour with like everybody, I got so lucky, you know. Also my timing of being in a band at the time that I was in, we got to open for Ray Charles and open for the Stones and like play with Stevie Wonder and like all these things that like were so incredible that I could never even imagined as a kid when I listened to those records by all those people. So like I was just so fascinated as all that was happening. I was also just staring at these people going, holy shit, you know. And I still do, you know. Part of my podcast thing is that I get to like fanboy out, you know what I mean? But it's just so happens that I'm also a musician. So they, you know, in certain cases open up to me and we have a relationship based on that, you know. But yeah, I'm just a fan. I listen to music constantly. I'm always listening to new music. You know, I think a lot of other guys my age, they're like, oh, I don't listen to music that's new. I can't get down with that. I'm always listening to what's new. I don't always get down with like mumble rap or whatever, but I'm going to listen to it. I want to know why my nieces listen to, you know, XXX Tenacion or whatever. I want to know why. And I actually like, sometimes I force myself to like it almost. Like I listen to it and then I go, oh damn, that melody's cool. Or like this is, so I don't know, man. I'm just so fascinated by music. It's like this endless thing. Like I talk to people that are in their 60s and 70s and they still practice all the time. And it's like this constant, you can keep feeding off of it and keep searching for the next thing. It's endless.
Do you think that you could like manufacture your career? If you stopped giving a shit about music, could you even do it anymore? Or would you want to if you didn't have that love for it and that fascination for it?
No, and to be honest, I've tried, because I think that I've tried. Like there was times where people expected things from me. And it goes back to the story I was telling you in LA. It was like a lot of those sessions were hard for me because I was expected to do something that didn't necessarily excite me. We went through that with Soulive, because once Soulive became something that was very successful at doing this thing, we got bored with that. It was obvious we were bored with it. You know what I mean? So we had to keep evolving and changing. And I think that's hurt my career in a lot of ways, because I'm like, every time I do something, it's a little different or a little bit. That's why I love being a producer too, because I get to work with so many different people and try different things all the time. But yeah, I don't think I could. I can't really make music that I'm not like feeling, you know. And I'm sure, Alan, you can relate to that. It's like it never feels right, and then like if you do end up putting that out, it's obvious to everyone else. You know what I mean? It's like you can't really front at the end of the day. Like your fans are too smart for that. Your fans will know when you're phoning it in or trying to do something that doesn't fit right. You know?
Do you ever go through the stage where you initially are feeling something and then like after it's been released and it's out in the world, you aren't feeling it anymore?
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Is that a normal like art experience, you think?
Yeah, I do think so. I mean, you put a lot of pressure on yourself as an artist to make records that you're gonna love for a long time. I mean, but, I think as you get older, you realize that those are all pieces, puzzle pieces to the bigger picture, Like, in fact, Soulive is releasing like a 21st anniversary of like our first recording that we did like in a garage or whatever.
Oh, shit,
and I listened back to it and I'm like, oh my God, I sound horrible. But it's a piece to the history. And like some people like it. I mean, that's the crazy thing, is that music is completely objective.
Right.
You know what I mean? And that's why I always like playing music for my wife, and because she's not a musician per se. She's a lover of music. But sometimes as musicians we get so heady. Yeah. And we get so comparison is really messed up in this day and age too. With you open your phone and you can see 5 bazillion singers that are amazing and guitarists that are shredding. I mean, I see 10, 12-year-olds a day shred me to pieces on my Instagram.
I doubt that, but yeah, I know what you're saying.
You know what I mean? So I think it's like, it's all about how it makes you feel in the end of the day. And if it's making other people feel good or whatever, at the end of the day, if you're going to go out and perform it every night and be inspired, you have to love it, Yeah,
you got to find a way to look at it. I to this day will put songs in the set list that if you were to ask me in a closed room, I don't like that song. I have some sort of connection with that tune, but the way I've found what I have done to find the ability to perform it is that it makes other people happy. Like I'm able to. How great of a asset to have that there's something that I've created that makes people joyful. Like that's the greatest thing that you can have as a human being, man. Do you so you've always wanted a family? That was kind of like always on your trajectory?
I always thought that I wanted it, and I always was like, when the right woman is there, that will be the sign. And I'm really glad that I waited. Or I mean, I don't know if I waited on purpose. It was just like, but the way, I'd say in my like late 30s, I started getting like kind of depressed and being like, oh, it's never going to happen kind of thing. Yeah. Because relationships were just never like quite working out the way I was hoping. But I'm really glad that the timing has happened when it is now, because I'm in a place where I can be home more. You know what I mean? I probably would have made that decision earlier in life anyway, but now I'm more comfortable with that decision. and just like health wise too. Like I've gotten a lot. I mean, also that's like the pandemic thing is like I started cooking my own food and exercising and changing my lifestyle. And part of that was like, do I want to be, like unhealthy and decrepit when this kid, I want to play ball with my kid and stuff, so like that happening at this point in my life was good. You know what I mean? In terms of just like motivating me to be healthier and stuff. So, yeah, I always knew I wanted that. I didn't know that I had the right situation for it, and I wasn't going to like force it, but I guess like it is true that like when you find someone that when I guess like even though like I was confused by that so many times earlier in my life.
Right.
Because you didn't know.
Yeah, because I didn't know, and I was like, "Is this it?" It could be it. I want this to be it. It was more like the want it to be it.
Yeah.
Did you? Because for many years of my life, I thought it wasn't possible. I think prior to being out on the road and seeing men who were like faithful husbands and great fathers also exist on the road.
Right.
I was like, oh shit, it's possible. Whereas prior to like being on the road and being surrounded by good like men and faithful spouses, good fathers, I was like, this is just not possible. What are you talking about, dude? It's partying, blow, and boobies every night, dude. And was there a little bit of that when you were able to like get around?
Well,
folk?
I was fortunate because Soulive, Neil, and Al are like the greatest dudes ever. To be like that talented and have like such a great balance of like they can hang, they can party, but they don't ever. They've always been faithful. And Al's like been the greatest dad. He has 2 like grown kids. So I think like I was fortunate to have like great people around me. But I've always had that drive though to be like, like when I was on the road, I'd always like try to find a studio like the day off or try to do something else like that. Now, like if I'm not playing a show, I'm probably heading home. You know what I mean? It's like so I think like, but I'm glad that I had that time that I did that. You know what I mean? It's like, cause I had a lot more energy for that then. And I never wanted to be the like absent dad, that was, I always knew, and not that like the guys around me were, but I want to be there for like the big moments, and I want to be there for when things are hard too, hopefully. So like, again, it's like, I think I was meant to have kids a little bit later. So I'm curious to see how things like, cause it's so funny because now I'm starting to get offers to do things and I like get this wrench in my gut right now when I get offers. Cause I'm like, I don't want to go. I don't really want. So, and like,
but the money,
the money is good. I need the money. I do want that, but it's always it's hard.
It's always the interesting catch-22 about like shows and the traveling and because the money's great and you think about it like, I gotta play like an hour set, like I'm gonna play an hour set and they're gonna pay me this much money to do that. Oh shit. You don't think about like it's gonna take me like 6 hours to fly there and then like it's gonna be it's actually 3 days, so it's 3 days worth of work and like you just don't surmise that. You're like, what's the dollar of amount and like how long is the set? How many songs you need? Right. I think that's gonna be. I'm interested to see where I land on that too, man. Because I've always had the idea of like, well, if I go out, I'll go out and it'll afford me the time to chill, at home. Well, what I've noticed during this pandemic is like I don't chill well.
Yeah, me neither, actually.
Like I have to have a project. I have to be doing something. And it's, I'm at home. I'm home at dinner like every night. But like I can't just like turn it off and sit. So there's has to be some sort of balance that I find. I'm not positive where that sits yet, but It would be nice. So your studio is just in the back of your house, man. Like just same property.
which is pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing.
So
of course, that like someone can, my wife can just be like knock on the door, and be like, "Hey, what's going on?" At any moment. But honestly, I love that. But yeah, there's some times where I'm like, I wish I just went somewhere. Yeah. But for the most part, I love it, man. It's like I can come in whenever I'm inspired. I just made a new record with Otis McDonald.
Yeah, I can't wait to check it out.
Really, like pretty much all of it happened via the internet. So like I would lay down a demo with like an acoustic guitar and like percussion. He'd put drums and keys on it, and I'd put like bass on it, or he would, and then I'd like maybe redo the vocal, and then he would do like harmonies, and we were created in this way that was like I could be in my pajamas, and I really got to like. It was funny because I kind of thought about it like, oh, I really got to spend the time, to make this record right. But it wasn't even that. It was more like that. The pressure it was more like the pressure was off. It was like when you're in a studio and you got 3 days or whatever you're doing, and there's tons of people around. It enabled me to get more done, and like a lot of it was the first take because I was relaxed and I was chilling and I had my sounds the way I wanted them. So it was a cool experience to make a record that way. I've never done it quite like that, I've definitely worked in my own studios. I had a studio in Brooklyn, but it was like in New York, you have a studio, and it's like so expensive to have a studio. I always had to share with you guys. Came to the spot I had before. There was always like tons of people, and you had to share it with people and schedule things. And so this has like been so nice to just like have my tones the way like my drums are mic'd how I like them, and my pre's are set the right way, and everything just sounds killer. You know what I mean? And I just turn it on and it's on. Yeah. So that's been like such a luxury, man.
It's funny. Do you find yourself like setting up your own home studio? Like, I didn't realize I had this much gear.
Dude, it was funny because when I moved to LA, I had in New York. I had moved studios like 4 or 5 times since I lived there, or maybe even more than that. Yeah. But I'd always had like the band storage unit, and then my storage unit, and then this other storage unit. And when I finally was moving, I like went to these storage units and then realized I'd been paying all that money for all these years. And I was like, wait, I haven't seen any of this shit. In so long, and half of it I threw. Funny thing was, the storage unit guy was laughing at me because I'd paid for that place for like 15 years. Came and then like took 2 things out and said, "Okay, let's throw this out." He's like, "That'll be another $1,000." God damn it! To throw it out. So anyway, a lot of it was like old like CDs and like boxes of like things and old merch and stuff. But when I moved out here, I actually had more space, but I moved a lot of my stuff here, but then I got rid of a lot of stuff like that had been in nooks and crannies over the years. And so I kind of like, even though I have more space, I actually purged a lot of stuff and got rid of the things I wasn't using. And
fuck those crannies, dude. I'm down with nooks, but fuck crannies.
Get rid of those crannies. But, yeah, man, having my own space has been so good. And now like digital gear is so good. Like I got rid of a lot of my, I know that having a real board and a real console is nice if you have the space, but now I just have like a bunch of random outboard gear and some decent mics, and you can make records, man. You can make great sounding records with not a lot now.
Oh my God. The Mac Ayers, we mentioned him earlier. He was in town for like a week, this last week, and I mean, kid's like 24. Like I love him. He was another guy. He came over and we instantly, we were just like laughing and making beats, and I really love him. He's great. Is an absolute legend. Young kid, man. I got pubes older than him. And he's just kind of like, it's funny because my studio evolution came from originally like making beats, right? In like Cubase.
Yeah.
And like loving that. And then I made a record with like a live band.
Yeah.
That people started paying attention to it. When I first met you, that was like a live record band. And I was like, oh, well, that's just how I have to make records now. I just have to make a record with like live drums, live bass, like everything has to be played in the room at the same time. Yeah. And Mac came over for a week and was just like, oh, I mean, kid does everything in his room in like Temecula. Yeah. And it sounds incredible.
Yeah.
And he doesn't got to like schedule a drummer and like schedule a bass. Like, he just showed me all these epic tricks in the studio that were like, oh my God.
Dude, it's amazing. It's amazing. I mean, I've always been doing that, but now the level that you can do it at is so incredible, man. Yeah. It's like, and I still do use live. My last record, like me and J-Most made that entire record in a laptop. Yeah. You know, because that one was like kind of the test. I was like, let's see if we can make an entire record this way. With the new record, you know, Otis has his studio where he has the drum kit and all that stuff, but like so much of it was like, I'll program something, build the whole track up, but then we'll replace certain things. But yeah, like Victoria Canal, who I think you know too, like she made her last record, she made that basically on her laptop, you know, the Logic, and I watched her like piece that together, and she'd come by my place and do vocals in my place and whatever, but most of it was just done like that. And like it's definitely like leveling the playing field. You don't need like a budget to make records anymore. It's like if you've got the time and the skill set, you know,
I think that's such a cool thing that you say, leveling the playing field, because I've felt through this pandemic that like door to the heavens has opened up where I'm like, oh, like I don't need to like wait around for this company that has a budget to knock down my door and be like, oh, we're going to do a TV show with you. Like we'll give you this much money. We'll own it. And we get to tell you what you get to do, but you can do it. You can do a TV show finally. It's like, what if I just like made my own TV show? Or what if I just didn't wait around for the label to go like, oh yeah, so we're going to put you in the studio with this person and like, here's the budget. And what if I just do it myself? And I think that, technology has allowed us that freedom, which is so hip, man. It's so exciting to see 10 years forward and go, oh man, like distribution, nobody holds the key for that anymore. The studio costs, those aren't high anymore. You can do it on your phone. It's really cool. Do you feel though, because as somebody who's so like, the records you've made throughout your career, Kras, are some of my favorite records ever. And you always play with a rhythm section, like the drums, bass, and guitar, drum, organ, guitar. Soulive is like organ, guitar, drums. Yeah, it's always live, and that thing that you can create on a stage. Yeah, you can't recreate that like with a laptop. No. And do you I mean, you must miss that, and I would imagine that's always going to be a part of your experience.
I definitely, you cannot recreate that energy. That's for sure. Yeah. But there are ways, like, you know, the way I think that technology is getting better and better in terms of like the stuff that my new record sounds like we were live. You know what I mean? Of course, you know, it has a different energy to it, but you know, I'm like, we're interacting, you know, and the drums and the bass and the guitar are interacting. So yes, we're creating things that still have that vibe, but there's nothing like being in a room with a band, you know, and that's the thing is like, and when like we said earlier, I hope that this goes back to like a hybrid type of situation where we continue to take the best things out of the lockdown, but also, you know, like I can't wait to actually like play with a band, right? You know, and play live. You know, I always have kind of, and this is something I actually want to ask you too, is like I, over time now, have like kind of compartmentalized like that the album and the live performance can be two completely different things. You know, like for so long I was worried about, oh, can I pull this off? And like, can I do this? And, but you know, I have gotten to the point now where I just like, of course I want the song to be recognizable live, but I kind of like open up the live thing to be completely different. And I know that like your live shows are like unbelievable. Every time I see you, it's like this trajectory that's like insane.
Okay.
But do you think about that when you're creating your records in terms of like, are you like, okay, I got to make sure I can pull this off live, so don't do too much of this these backgrounds, or are you like conscious of that when you're making records?
I think I have been conscious of it before, but I've always wanted the ticket buyer to get something extra, because they're buying something extra. They're buying an experience where they're leaving their home and they're standing in a sweaty, uncomfortable place for however long they have to in order for me to be on stage. And so I've always wanted it to be a step above the record.
Yeah.
But I also always was really anal about the record feeling like human and live.
Right.
I'm not so much connected to that as much as I used to be. I used to be like, if it's not a live drummer in real time playing, like there's no samples and nothing. I'm not so much connected to that on the record tip anymore. And I think that they both can live separate lives. I think as long as the top line is there, as long as the melody is there of the vocal or the guitar or whatever that hook is, then as a music lover, I'm excited to see that. Although I saw Lauryn Hill one time in Park City of all places.
Right.
And she did the Miseducation, but she flipped every song like to the point where it was unrecognizable. And I was so pissed.
I saw that same exact thing. I saw her in Brazil actually when we were down there. And she wouldn't even do the whole song. She'd do like snippets. And she would always do it over like a Bob Marley song or something, or like over another track. Yeah. There's times where it's extreme that. Yeah. There's times when you really want to hear the song. That's for sure. But yeah, I think there's a balance to it that you don't want to make, but I guess like what I'm saying is like, I don't limit myself in the studio, anymore. I'm kind of just like, let's use these tools.
Cool.
I also have to be conscious not to do too much,
right?
Cause sometimes you don't want to clog it up with too much information, but,
right. And you don't want to lose it on stage either too. I think about that a lot, really, honestly, like just like, am I going to be able to have, because I don't want to use tracks as much as possible.
Right.
And there's moments where it's helpful and it's can make the song or the performance really stand out. But I want to use it as little as possible, like maybe little percussion elements or just have a click in our ears so that the lighting tech can trigger things in the right order, every night the same way. So when I'm in the studio, the one thing that I get like really hinged on is like, how many people am I going to need to travel with in order to pull that off? That's it. It's not like, can I recreate that live? It's just literally like, I can't afford to travel with like 9 background vocalists. So I'm only going to lay down 2 stacks,
Right.
Which I don't think that's ridiculous, because I want to get at least close to the record when I'm performing live. Like I don't want to do a song that's so big on the record, and then when people come and see it live, it's like, that doesn't compute really.
Let me ask you this: are there songs on your records that you love on the record that don't quite do what you want it to live, or vice versa?
Yeah.
Are there songs that you thought were sleepers on the record that just jump off live? Absolutely.
Usually the ones that jump off live that are sleepers on the record, they're only sleepers on the record just because of like the view count. I was always like, oh, that song's fire.
You're always into it.
Because I know that it's going to be pulled off well live. Yeah. But there's plenty of songs on the record that everybody loves or that people feel. And I can't figure out how to pull them off live. Like they just don't work live. Yeah. But I switch them around enough. Like I just change them. I just change them enough. And as long as the top line's there and it's like relatively close on the BPM, like I feel like people can groove with them. I don't know. I don't take a review of every single participant in my show after they leave and be like, what did you think of
So what did you think of song
did you
3?
like the beef bouillon? What did you think of that review? So when's this record come out, Kraz? You sent me the files.
It's not happening until September because of like COVID, and I'm actually signing a new record deal like right now. So it's just like but I'm excited about it. I'm like just working on the artwork right now. I'm gonna do some videos, and but I'm also like producing. I actually made another record like after that one that's an instrumental record.
Oh, sick.
That might actually come out before that, which is kind of insane. And then I've been just producing a ton of other stuff. I've been producing James the Eighth, this artist. So I think you met James.
Yeah, I've met him. He's killer.
He's dope, and he's like the one dude who's been over here. He's like in my pod, right? But he like lives down the street. So like we've been kind of like, we have 3, or I think we've got so many tracks, but we're gonna do 3 EPs over the next year.
Oh, awesome!
And they all have like different concepts to it, so that's been really fun. Like building that with him. We've been working together for like 2 years building stuff, but like we finally kind of like have things in like he started like coming up with the concept for this current EP, and we just like decided, okay, let's just finish those tracks, mix those, put those out, and then we'll start to leak the other stuff, put the other stuff out. And what else have I been doing? I mean, it's just been a ton. I'm working with Mark Broussard actually.
No way.
So cool.
Yeah, and on his stuff, which will be cool. We're kind of just starting, so we have like a few tracks, and
nice.
we're
That's
kind of
gonna
like
be
writing via satellite and doing some production
That's the best.
stuff. So that's
always-
gonna be fun.
It's always been the one thing about Mark Broussard that I've always just like. He's my one of like top 5 singers, like desert
He's
island
incredible,
singers, and I've always been like, I just wish that he would get with a cool producer. Like
This one's gonna be cool, man. We've already started going. Like the last couple that we got on are like, oh shit, now we're like on some shit.
Yeah. Do you remember
So
that?
I'm gonna have Otis, my guy, like playing drums and doing some
That's
mix,
so
like
cool,
adding
dude.
to the
I
vibe.
can't
and
wait.
shit.
Can you send me some of that shit? Is that possible?
Yeah, man. It's still so rough.
You need a
as we have,
cameo?
like, something.
Can I sing on one of the tracks?
Shit. I know he'd be so. He's a huge fan of yours. In fact, I think when I like posted something, or I think it might have been the Mexico trip, he was like, "Oh, your homies with Alan, like link me up, bro."
Yeah, he calls me randomly like every 8 months and has like this business idea that I'm like, whatever, dude, I'm in. Let's go. And
Yeah.
I just don't really hear from him.
He is always thinking like that. Like he was like talking to me about like NFTs and shit before. It's funny because he's from Louisiana, like in the cut, but he's always like got like the next level like business ideas and shit.
Yeah, it's always above my head. I'm like, whatever, include me, man. I'm cool. And then I just never hear. God, that's so cool. The Mark Broussard record, all of his records are fire. Incredible songwriter, but to me, the coolest record he ever did was the Save Our Soul record. Do you ever remember that SOS record that Calvin did? Do you remember Calvin?
I played guitar on a couple of those tracks, I think. I know I played on like the Donny Hathaway track.
Oh God! Yeah, of course you did.
course
That
you
was
did,
like the
yeah.
coolest record to me. It was like,
so
Dude.
and it was because Calvin. It was like, I mean, and it's Mark, right? But like,
Yeah.
Calvin's so hip.
Dude, Calvin is one of I call him Killer Cal. He plays so bad. He's one of my favorite bass players, but his ears are just incredible. The song on that record too, that's my favorite, is the original, Coming from the Cold.
Oh, God damn
That
it, dude.
is the joint. I've always been like, every time I'm with Mark and we have a chance, I always want to play that song. He's like, he thinks I'm
so
a little
good.
crazy because I'm like a super fan of that song. I love
Such
that
a
whole
good-
record.
all-
And then he did Volume 2, which I'm not as familiar with. He did like a sequel to that. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh
He
no, I didn't
did
know
Save
that.
Our Soul like 2.
Wow.
That's more. I think was in the last few years. But yeah, he's just got one of those voices. It's just like timeless, classic, like so good.
Yeah, he was one of the first live shows I ever saw. Like I think
Wow.
just growing up in a small town, like the only live shows that you could get were in Spokane, where we currently are. But that was like an hour and a half from where I grew up.
Right.
And the first proper live show I ever saw that wasn't like Bill Gaither band or some like him singing shit, was Johnny Lang was the first one I ever saw. And then right after that, it was Mark Broussard and, oh God, why am I forgetting his name? He's a friend of ours too. He's in that like Jack Johnson camp, blues player, but hip hop.
G-Love?
G-Love, yeah. G-Love was the headliner.
Nice.
And there was, it was Spokane, Washington, so there was maybe 30 people there. And I remember just listening to Mark sing, just like, fuck, dude. It's so powerful.
He's so powerful. Pure. Just like, soulful cat.
When's that going to come out? Do you have any idea?
We're just
getting started.
Digging in.
Cool.
So who knows?
Exciting.
We were supposed to make this record pre-COVID. We had plans to make it in New Orleans originally. Well, I think he was maybe going to come to LA, write with me, and then we were going to go to New Orleans to cut it. But it was like, right before it was like planned for like the April, May of 2020. So when COVID hit, we like scrapped it. And then we were kind of and then in the last couple of months, we're like, well, what if we just start making it via satellite, And so we just kind of been digging in.
That's so cool, man. That's like the best news that I've
That's
heard.
super fucking cool, man. I'm pumped about that.
I'm so amped to hear that record. That's going to be sweet.
Yeah, man. But yeah, it's been fun to like again, doing things like that. And I'm doing other writing sessions. I wrote a few tracks with Marcus King for his new record. And when he was out, he was like the other cat that I saw when he was out here. We've done a couple sessions, and it's like people are opening up to the idea of doing stuff virtually, and then like some people will, hopefully soon people will be able to like make stuff in person, and man, until like the travel completely opens up, we just do what we can, man.
Yeah, totally.
It's cool to listen to you, man, because it just, I don't know, it's I have a lot of admiration for you, because it seems like you've been putting in your time for so long, beyond even like the length of time that Alan and I have even been doing anything with our lives. And it seems like at this point you're kind of arrived at exactly where you want to be, and with doing what you want to be doing, and even having kids at a societally kind of like late period of your life. It's just like, it seems like it's all by design for you, and you're exactly where you want to be, doing the things you want to be doing, and really making the most out of this experience. And it's fucking awesome, man. It like gives me a lot of inspiration and hope, and I don't know, man, like you're a fucking goddamn legend, dude.
Goddamn legend, Kras.
It's really cool to.
I appreciate that, man.
It's really cool to.
That.
Really cool
I think it's like, remembering to show gratitude at all times. Not that I did that when in my younger years, but I think that's like something that's been instilled in me over time, is like, give gratitude as much as you can, and you're just going to be happy.
Yeah.
It's like they're always going to have up and downs, but if like when you get out of bed, you're like, oh man, this is pretty good. What I mean? This is pretty tight. I get to make music. I got a great wife. I got a good family. I think that's the thing, man, is it's like, it's hard to like stay grounded. A lot of times when I was younger, every time like something cool would happen, I'd like, rather than spend the time loving that thing, it was right to the next thing. Like, what's going to be doper than this? This was dope. I wanted this for so long. I got it. It's dope. But what's next? I think, it's like taking that time to chill and appreciate it. I think that's another thing that happened during like COVID was like, and for me, it was like compounded with like doing a podcast, because I spoke to really awesome people all the time. But it was like just giving thanks for all the cool things that I've done. And of course it's not nearly as cool maybe as like Keith Richards, but it's pretty fucking cool.
Sure it is.
You know what I mean? So I think like that's part of it for me, man, is like getting to a point where you can appreciate not only the things that have happened, but the things that are happening.
Good on you, Kras.
Cruise.
Yeah. Well, dude, I can't wait till we get to take our families to Cabo and just
and tell them like
have some more
half
tequila.
the stories.
Yeah, I don't tell them anything. We set them loose on Do you remember that meal we had with Bruce?
Oh yeah.
And I forget the name of that restaurant, but
no, it was. Oh wait, I gotta think of it because it's a famous place.
Bro, we took I felt like we were about to get kidnapped on our way out there because we took like unmarked vans.
Flora Farms.
Flora Farms, that's what it was?
That place was epic, dude.
That was the greatest meal I've ever had in my life.
Yeah, that was insane. I've gone back like 3 times.
To Cabo?
Yeah, to El Gonzo. Like I went back. The next time I went back, they gave me the like fucking Escobar suite, like where like the one Bruce had. Where I had like my own freaking pool and shit.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they unlocked like the other area that I didn't even know existed the first time. But yeah, I went back to Flora Farms, and dude, that place is the most epic. So there's a huge garden, and like pretty much all the food is grown
right
on
there.
the property. Yeah, those were some fun times, man.
That was the most bonkers meal I've ever had in my life. I was glad that you told me Flora Farms. Now, is El Gonzo, because did the owner not pass away?
The owner passed away, Pablo. And it still exists, though. It's still going, and they have some of the same like management people are running it, but Mark's no longer there. Gotcha. They've got the studio, and they've got like they're still doing like the in residence like artists. But yeah, Pablo, the guy it was his vision to have like create this hotel that was also like an arts center and music place. Yeah. So I think they're still doing it. It's just different peeps. Different
ownership.
Can I come with you guys when you go back?
Absolutely not.
We should go back.
We should.
Absolutely not. Fuck. I went back. Yeah, I went back with my band, and we did like one of those videos. And I should go back and watch that video. You know, there is a video online of me, you, and Swati. Yeah. Doing a couple of your songs.
Yeah, it's great. I'm like just super sunburnt.
Yeah, I'm like burnt and drunk. You know?
Best way to be.
I was like, oh, there's a video. Oh yeah, that's why we're here. I mean, that's why, guys, why we're here for the video. That's why we're here. Remember? I think I was like bruised like from some of those hangs. I remember yelling "sissy" from like the floor of like the cement somewhere.
We were up in our rooms were on like the 5th floor, and I remember yelling down to the pool, "Sissy!"
I know.
And then we performed that night, and everybody was like, "Wasn't that the fucking idiots yelling sissy?"
I know. They did not know what they were getting into, giving us the keys to that place. And that was the thing. I'd be like, anybody want to go to the studio? It's right here. And I was in charge somehow. I was like, it's just over here. Just go downstairs. This is the console. Turn it on right here.
It's so good, man.
Yeah, that was good times, man. Good memories. Well, Kras, dude, I love you to pieces, man. It's always really great to catch up with you. Give your family my love, and I can't wait to meet them in person. And
I know, man. Let's do it. We'll make it work. We'll do a little studio fam
vacation, man. Yeah. And then when this thing straightens out, man, we're fiending to get you up here on Live at the Lodge. We've been doing some fun things up.
I would love to, man. I'll pop up there.
Hell yeah. All right. Well, anything lastly that you want to include to the several viewers we have?
Nah, man, I appreciate what you guys are doing, man. I appreciate what you guys are doing. You can find whatever I'm doing just looking up my name, Eric Krasno. I got the podcast. I got some music stuff. We got all sorts of goodies. If you search for it and you want to take the time, I'm out there. I'm out here.
Yeah, plus one with Eric Krasno. I very, very highly recommend.
Oh, and those of you that don't know, Alan was on my show. You were like in the early like first 5 or 6 episodes I put
we just talked about religion. I like blacked out for
it was an interesting conversation. I listened to that one too, and I was like, fuck, I forgot you were religious for so long.
A lot of people really loved that. I mean, that's what I kind of like on my show is that it just goes wherever.
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I
the
mean?
best.
And like some of it's really out there, but I think it's and sorry, one last thing. I keep
coming.
edging,
Keep-
butting in.
Come on,
But,
Dave.
one thing I want to say about what you guys are doing too is like, and back to like the labels and the gatekeepers, is like, it's such a cool era because your fans get to know you on another level. And like you were saying, and like you making records like by yourself, and you're not that you shouldn't make records with other people and other producers, but I think there's something personal to that people love and see you through your TV show and your podcast and all the things that you're doing. They get to know you on another level, and that's pretty fucking cool.
Yeah, it's so cool, man. It's like the best. There's never been a better time in history to be a creative and to be inspired to make stuff. It's like, it's
Totally.
so cool.
We just keep saying shit on this podcast and we forget what we say, and then like multiple weeks later people are like have this relationship with us based off some shit we said that we're like, oh fuck, we did say that. Oh
Yeah.
God, maybe we should watch ourselves.
Yeah,
And
maybe
we're
we
like,
should
no,
watch, man.
no, we shouldn't.
I know.
Fuck it.
I wish I could listen to myself. I can't listen to myself talk for that long, which is crazy. It's crazy that I'm a podcaster and that's my feeling. But on that note, I love you guys, and thanks for having me on, dude.
Love you back,
so
man.
much.
Thanks so much for being with us, dude.
Eric Krasno,
Absolutely.
folks.
Oh, boo-boo, did you just make it to the end of the video? Yes, you did. Do you want to see more videos just like this one? Do you?
Well, then head over to patreon.com/live at the lodge, where you can support the How Good's This podcast, as well as the entire Live at the Lodge family.
Yep, yeah, you're going to get exclusive merch, personalized shout-out videos. Me and Jules, we're going to show up at your house and baptize your nephew, huh? Check it out, patreon.com/live at the lodge.